Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing one of their past projects. We will let you decide if it was good or bad or just plain ugly. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is maximum allowable offer. As a real estate investor, an important lesson to learn is that you make your profit when you buy a property, not when you sell it. A simple formula many investors use is MAO, which means maximum allowable offer. You take the ARV, multiply it by 0.75, and then subtract the repair costs to come up with the MAO. Now, wait, what? Huh? So what that means is the 0.75 represents your profit along with the holding costs, which include realtor fees, monthly utilities, interest to lenders, etc. Here is an example. The ARV, which means after repair value, for this property would be $350,000. You take the ARV, $350,000, and multiply it times 0.75 and subtract the repair costs, which are $65,000. That gives you a MAO of $197,500. So getting an education is so important so you know how to calculate the ARV and repair costs properly. One missed repair item can cause your whole project to go upside down. If you choose the wrong comps to base your ARV, your renovation can sit much longer on the back end. So, once you learn how to calculate these numbers and apply it to the MAO, you will never make the mistake of paying too much for a property. Now, on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us a new friend of mine, Simon Fentress. Simon is a husband, father, and serial entrepreneur. He has a master's degree in speech, theater, and education. He gets snaps for that. He ran a successful real estate company from 2001 to 2007. After the financial crash, Simon managed a nonprofit in San Francisco Bay Area and did freelance videography and production for major tech companies. Simon is currently a full-time real estate investor. So welcome to the show, Simon. Did I say your last name correctly?
Oh, absolutely, you slayed it. Yeah,
excellent.
So I feel like I'm like a born again real estate investor. So it's like coming back for the second life version.
Well, a lot of people, went through that downturn and never came back. So good for you for coming back in. You see the value in the market, and that's awesome. Super proud of you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry. So today I'm excited because you're not going to talk about a past project. You're going to talk about a past wholesale deal. And I haven't had any wholesalers talk about a wholesale deal on my show yet. So quickly, tell us exactly what is a wholesale?
Well, a wholesale deal, instead of doing a fix and flip, is a wholesale deal is where you're just assigning a contract essentially. And this deal is a little bit more involved than that because I did get the project property subject to, so we'll kind of get into that, and then immediately listed it and sold it. But I never did any work on the property at all.
So you got it under contract, and then you assigned that contract to someone else for a fee.
That's essentially how I've done a lot of them. This particular one, and I've did a lot like this, it's where the person just really is at that walk away point and they just need to deal with it. So I'd come with a packet of information. They would deed me the property. They would give me a power of attorney for them to sign for them. So just it like a lot of these deals that I dealt with, just people just walking away from property, and then I was able to turn around and sell it. So sometimes I listed them, to get the maximum value out of it. So it's a little different than just typical get it under contract, flip it to a person that's going to do a fix and flip. So it's a little different from that, but yeah.
Well, I have to get something out of the way because a lot of times people think wholesalers are ripping off investors, and I have to disagree 1,000%. And the last 2 projects that we have purchased recently are from wholesalers, and one of them, I just found out recently what he made, but I know what I'm making, and to me, it doesn't matter what you make. It's if my numbers make sense to me as the real estate investor, then absolutely you should make as much money you can on the wholesale deal. So I had to get that out of the way because we bought a townhome from one of our friends recently, and we paid $225 for it from him. That was the contract. I don't know what he paid for it, but he assigned it to us, and we bought it from him for $225, and we're going to make $32,000 off this. It was an 8-day flip, super quick. So $32,000. No problem. I hope he made $50,000. I don't care. I'm glad I'm walking away with $32,000 for 8 days of work. So that is super important for listeners out there to understand. When you work with wholesalers, it doesn't matter what they're making because a lot of people get stuck on that number, and you've got to look past it. You got to look at what you're making if the numbers make sense to you. So let's talk about this property. You said it was a subject.
I want to
Yes.
like something that you specifically said is that some people feel like wholesalers are just ripping people off. And I'm going to tell you at the end of this transaction, and we'll get into the weeds of what it was, the seller, the original owner of this property, with tears in his eyes, said this is the first thing that has worked out for him for the last 5 years. And I didn't understand how your life could go upside down and you could lose everything and go into, I didn't understand that because I hadn't had loss like that in my life, but I do understand it now, and people's lives can just take a really hard turn. They just make a series of really challenging mistakes that make their life really hard. So, and
I appreciate you saying that because we are, as real estate investors, we are real estate solution experts as well, and we can help people through deals that is going to get them the most bang for their buck. So we're not all these people out there that are greedy and stealing people's money and sliming all that stuff. A lot of times we are truly saving these people from a financial hardship. So thank you for saying that.
So this this guy contacted me. He was in foreclosure. I went to his house, and he was actually losing the house like the next day.
Well, how did you know? Let's talk about the connection there. How did you find this guy?
So I was marketing to pre-foreclosures at the time. So
and like doing letters or calls?
I was doing handwritten postcards.
Oh boy. Okay. So you had a lot of time on your hands.
Well, I started by handwriting them myself, and then I had somebody do it.
Smart.
Eventually, after I closed a couple of deals, and there was this lady that would do all of them for me. To send her the list, and she would handwrite them.
Well, that's very personalized. I love that.
Well, you can't really fake it,
Right.
There's if you see an indentation on a piece of paper, like you can tell and hold a piece of paper and see if it's been written on. I don't know if they're able to fake that
Right
now, but so I went to this person's house, and it was just the timeline was too short. I couldn't do anything for him, and then he told me he had another property. It was really, really hard to nail down. He was just so mistrustful of any paperwork or anything. So I actually met him another day, and we're going over kind of some terms, and he's like, I can't, I can't agree, like I don't like this, I don't like that. So I literally, this was like the back of the napkin deal where I went line by line and I said, is this okay? And then I wrote it on a piece of paper and we just went line by line, handwritten. He signed it. And I took it to my title company, and the title on this property was really, really distraught. Essentially, this guy had been trying to do this thing called mortgage elimination.
Oh.
He'd been trying to take, and he had this lender in litigation for the last 5 years, trying to, quote, air quotes, remove his mortgage. That does not work.
He's doing the air quotes, folks, just so you know. I can see him.
Yeah, that does not work. So anyways, he was like 3 weeks out from losing this mixed use commercial property. So let me just describe the property.
Yes, let's start there.
Itself. So the property had a single family home there. It had renters in it. It was a 3-1. Funky, lots of repair need to happen, and then behind that he had a 3,000 square foot building, and they did welding for crab traps.
Crab traps.
Yeah, so he had been essentially equity skimming. That's when you're taking rents and then you're not paying the bank. That's called equity skimming. So it's like fraud. But this property backed up to the airport. So it's just this crazy location with all this stuff going on. And the title company said that they would not do it if he was on title. I said, okay, so if he, and this gets into the subject to deal, which I don't know if you want to explain more about the subject to, but the subject to is when a person deeds you their property along with, a bunch of different paperwork and deeds it into a trust. And so I took over the property in trust and with all this paperwork, and I had the relationship with the title company where they would trust that I could get whatever they needed off. I'd go back to the original owner and just get, but they were so concerned that he was going to do something to them, because they could see all this litigious activity. So again, I think that your relationships with different real estate professionals, special title companies changes when you're bringing them a lot of deals. They're willing to go to places like, if this was my first deal, it would have never happened. So it's like establishing relationships, getting people paid on a regular basis changes how they view you, changes how they interface with you.
And let me cut you off here for a second, because I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we have one attorney that I trust with our subject to deals. And she's in Charlotte, but she's fantastic. Shout out to my girl, Stephanie Cooper. But yes, this is super important because there's so many parts to a subject to deal, and you're wholesaling on top of it. So, we aren't even there yet, but you have to make sure that legally everything is done, because you're getting your name attached to this property, but yet does he still have the mortgage payment? What's going on with that?
Yeah. That's subject to, so it's putting it into a land trust, but with the original financing in place. So. And
you take over that payment.
Right. Well, in this case, I didn't guarantee the payment because it was couple weeks out from foreclosure at, I think, about $50,000 in arrears.
Wow.
At that. So
Gotcha.
Originally the mortgage was down around $120,000 with all the penalties and everything. He was around $190,000, I think, that he owed on the property when he deeded it to me.
And what is the ARV of this property?
The ARV, and it's a lot easier with single family homes with mixed use and location. It becomes like pretty unique property. So there's a couple of things that just were really challenging to figure out, like, what is the value? There's a big fluctuation. So it's about $350 to $400.
Okay, great. And what were the repairs that needed to be done? Not to mention that there's people living in this house, but let's talk about the repairs here.
and an active business going on.
Oh,
I would say that the house needed about 25,000.
okay, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
So, were the renters that were living there, were they the ones running the business behind the house?
No, separate.
Lots of players. Okay.
Lots of players. And
So,
then, yeah.
so you get this deal and you have a contract written on the back of a napkin and you take that to your attorney, or I'm sorry, it was a closing, a title company. And, and they filtered through and made a legit contract for you. And then you assigned this contract to somebody else?
So it's essentially we had this handwritten thing, and then I came back to him with what the title company said, and I said, look, they're not going to deal with you. Like, they're just not, like, you're going to get zero out of this deal because you've clouded the title, you did all these things. I can't go forward and do what I need to do without you deeding me the property and doing these things. Like, and so it was this, it's step by step with him. It was like, it was building trust. And that was a big leap for him. But then he understood the other side of that was zero. So I'm like, if I don't make any money, you don't make any money. So we came to an agreement that would split profit on whatever I could get on the back end of it.
On the wholesale deal.
On the whole, on the sale, anything like above what he owed. He did end up owing some IRS things, so that came off of him because it was separate from the property. But there was other liens from the IRS on there as well. But yeah, so it was unique in that way because I essentially said, I'm really the only person that's going to be able to help you in this situation. And that was true. I think you said solution. What'd you call us? Solution?
Real estate solutions company. We are real estate solution experts.
So I feel like a lot of the thing that makes you successful as a real estate agent or investor is the willingness to go where other people stop.
That's true.
Or yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, very well said, because a lot of people don't understand that. So thank you for reinforcing that. So how did you find an end buyer for this crazy property up next to an airport with a welding company in the back, a family living in it? So how did you find a buyer for it?
So we put it up on the MLS.
Oh.
So my wife is a realtor, and we put it up on the MLS and started getting offers. Originally, I think even as I was starting, I had put some things feelers out there. And so this guy that owned a roofing company offered to pay me cash for this property. And as we were getting deeper into the title and issues around it, there was this this dump area in it, and it went out and it kind of fished around in it, and it's just like, it was just weird. It was like hot. Anyways, come to find out that there was a plywood company that had previously owned it, like an owner or two before, and they had been dumping one of their waste products from making plywood, which is clarifying sludge.
Say what? Clarifying sludge?
Clarifying sludge. Now, keep in mind this drained directly into a creek, right by it. So the dump, and then there's a creek there, and then it goes into the bay.
Ugh.
So I researched clarifying sludge, and clarifying sludge has mercury in it.
Oh my goodness.
So now I am I'm essentially have inherited this super fund, ecological disaster. And there was this guy, and he was like, yeah, I'll just pay you cash now, as is, whatever. And I just looked at this guy, and I was like, this is the kind of thing that destroys this guy's life. So I decided that I wasn't going to sell it to him. Even there was a lot of money on the table, even though I was like, I don't think that you're going to be able to survive this deal. So I got an offer by a guy that owned a large part of this town that we're working in. Like, he owned the whole downtown area, major, and disclosed to him about the clarifying sludge. we went in contract, we went out of contract, back and forth. And finally, so just coming down to the week. So it's like 1 week left before the foreclosure. He drops out. And then I just got this feeling. I just went to the realtor's office that was making the offer. And I just said, like, okay, so where are you? And I just sat down and just said, okay, let's get it done. He said, well, my client has left, but they've given me permission to sign this with you.
Wow.
And so we signed it. We got it done with about 3 days left. Full disclosure.
Good for you. So, all right, the big question here is, how much money did you make from this deal?
So with the profit share and all the things, made 80, and I 80 grand.
Wow.
And 3 weeks of a lot of confusing and very worth it experience. And then I gave him, what did it end up? About 300 or 30 grand of that. So I walked away with about $50,000 of that.
Very nice. And what became of this property? I'm so curious now. Where did the sludge go? What happened?
And I've driven past it a couple of times, and it looks fairly similar, like all the things that were happening. I have not seen it recently. But the guy that, and this all goes to your network, right? This guy had people that he knew with the state regulators and that could put him in touch with the Superfund. Because ultimately, whether something has a ecological disaster like this or not, it has to get cleaned up. But it's really connections and the ability to navigate that. So I felt like this guy has definitely got enough money to handle whatever is going to happen here.
Well, I think the lesson here is that we, as these real estate solution experts, we can get creative with deals like this, because this guy walked away with $30K. He could have lost a ton of money, and yet you are still able to make him somewhat whole, get rid of the property. He can take his $30K and run. A quick example of this is, for anyone who's listening, you can use wholesaling as an exit strategy as well. Because when you saw this project, maybe you thought you would buy it, flip it, or do something with it, but then you saw it was way too big for you. And a smaller version of this is, I had a client whose name was Carlos. He's a great guy. He was moving back to Miami, and he owed a lot on his townhome. And so I was able to go by and look at it. And for the repairs that needed to be done, I couldn't do it with my budget. So I was able to wholesale it to a friend of mine who's a contractor who could have he did the repairs for half the price, and he was still able to make money. I made a teeny tiny bit of money on it just because I was trying to help out this family. And, I saved him from, losing his ass in that deal. So it is so important to learn all different types of exit strategies. So, Simon, home run on this one. Thank you for sharing that. Let me give you a little applause. I am super proud of you. That is fantastic. So, I don't know you very well. We are part of the Tarek El Moussa education program, and I see you on calls because you always have this really cool background and a cool microphone, and I'm like, ooh, who is that guy over there? So the second half of the podcast, I like to find out what makes you a badass, and I use the acronym BADASS. So let's go to the first letter, which is B, and it is book. What is a book that has made a huge difference in your life?
Well, it was suggested in college from a friend that had done a flip that got me into real estate. And he's like, I went to spring break and I flipped this house, and I'm like, how much did you make? And he's like, kind of like sheepish, he's like 30 grand. And he's like, yeah, you got to read this book. And he gave me Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that just, of course, just ruined me, especially coming out of graduate school. Like, oh, like I just don't understand money at all. I don't. Oh, okay. So it's a big eye opener about how you think about money. And that has carried through. And then in my marriage, I was like, I just came to this realization. I was like, you know what? We really get to sell our house and just get passive income or flip some deals and become financially independent. So that's definitely has been like a little seed that was planted, like, oh, financial independence. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the I call that the purple Bible for the real estate investors because it's written by Robert Kiyosaki and it talks about a rich dad and a poor dad, and his dad was the poor dad who was the educator and went through college and did all those things and did what most of us are taught to do, and then his best friend's dad was his rich dad who did all these investments and how he went about, and so total mind shift to read through that to get your mindset in the right place. So excellent. Thank you for sharing that.
I think, what's coming out of that and having, I remember after doing this deal that we're talking about, I was talking to my dad. I was really excited about what, and so he looked at me straight in the face and said, how much do you make? And I told him, and that was about what his income per year was. And that, like, there was just a permanent shift in our relationship from that point. Like, and so I would say, as if you are doing flips or you make quite a bit of money, you get so excited about it, you want to share it with a lot of people, just be really mindful of where that person is mentally about money, and try to, share it with people that are going to celebrate you. Because it can really change relationships by telling a person that you just worked for 2 weeks and made what they make in a year.
That is so important because I have found when I got into this industry, there are people who they were my best friends before who I don't even really speak to as much, just because they don't understand. And yes, there is that whole connotation of people don't know how to accept people who have money and they think money is bad and that's how they're brought up. So great point. And my father, who was exactly like Robert Kiyosaki's father, said go to college, get an education, and then work for the man, retire, then die. So because that's what he was taught. And unfortunately, he passed before I even got into this industry. But I think he would have just been blown away by the awesomeness. So great point. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. The first A in badass is advice. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
And who gave it to you? So I think as I came up against a lot of different things, and I had a kind of a mentor, spiritual advisor when I was getting into real estate, and it bumped up against things that I didn't know what to do. I didn't know, and I think a lot of these things come around mindsets of like, we get kind of like stuck in our however we're raised, like a lower middle class, and it's just like things seem impossible. So it's just like ain't nothing to it but to do it. Just like you just walk it forward. You just
say it again.
Ain't nothing to it but to do it.
I love it. I'm gonna have to write that one down. I think that's fantastic. Who told you that? Ain't nothing to it but to do it. Who gave you that advice?
You know what?
Oh, is that?
I don't think that I should say.
Okay.
It's a
fine. Secretive Simon.
I will tell you. I'll tell you offline. But it was kind of a spiritual advisor. But definitely interesting character. But I don't think we should point anybody in this direction.
So you got this advice from Fonzie. Okay, we'll move on. All right. The
Fonz.
The Fonz. I told everyone it's out of the bag. So the D in badass is drive. What drives you, Simon, to be successful?
I feel like there's the fear part of wasting my life. I mean, if you think about it, it's like we didn't create our life. We've been gifted with this time, and it's so precious. And just the fear of just wasting it, just doing things that won't ever make you free. So if you're not doing something to create more freedom in your life, and then you're not doing something that you love, like like what are you doing? I mean,
Right.
it's great to do things that you enjoy and give back and are generous and all those things, but also in that, like, how are you taking care of yourself? So what drives me to be successful is just um, the immense gratitude I have for the blessings I have.
That's wonderful. All right. The second A is aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So, what is a goal you are currently working on?
Ooh, mastering cold calls.
Ugh.
So
I mean, good for you.
it's my stretch for the week. When I was the first run at real estate was just direct marketing, getting people to call me. But I see a lot of people now, and the scale that you can do if you can get past all the rejection. So that's my stretch for this week, is to do 900 cold calls. So it's very new to me. I did a big text blast this last week, so I got to see how people respond to that, which is yeah, it's got to be thick skinned.
I'm
And
I'm
also,
so not thick skinned, so I can't handle it. I get like upset when someone says, "Take me off your mailing list. I keep getting postcards from you." I'm like, "I'm so sorry. I'm sorry my colorful postcard upset you." But yeah, calling, I'm sure you get a lot of FUs and,
okay, so yeah, I think that there's a empathy piece that you can really get down, where people's defense mechanisms, where you can just in really good moments, that with people around me, or my wife, or anybody, when you can see past the pain that person is having. Because let's be honest, a person has to be in a great amount of loss, and with what 25% of the adult population not able to make their mortgage now, or not being able to pay rent, there's this shift that people are going to have in their life, that's coming. It's very uncomfortable.
right.
And so to really connect to the deeper humanity, and be able to look yourself in the mirror and know that you're one of the good guys. Know that where you're come from is like your North Star is love. It really makes a lot of those things not hurt. It's not personal at all.
Well, that takes a special gift, and it looks like I'm going to have a session or two at the Fonz because and get some of that. So that is wonderful that you can do that, honestly. Thank you for sharing that. So the first S in badass is systems. And to do 900 cold calls, I'm sure you have some systems in place. So what do you have in place to help you achieve success?
So the tools that we have, automated deal flow. So that's how I'm pulling my leads, which was the gift from the Clever Investor, and being part of that mastermind. And then text magic is what I was using for texting. You can text through the automated deal flow, and then. So yeah, automated deal flow just makes everything's really, really pretty easy. They have the back end with your website and capturing leads and those different things. And then for the cold calling is Mojo. And then you can get a single line that you can dial about 80 people, or a triple line, $150 a month.
Okay, I don't know what the heck Mojo. I mean, I know what Mojo is, but I know you're talking about. So explain.
Mojo is an auto dialer.
Gotcha.
So you find your list. So say, for example, it's a pre-foreclosure list, and then you skip trace the contacts. So there's
How
data
much does that
provider.
cost?
So you're going to pay between 20 and 10 cents
per lead
for those leads.
And you get what? What does skip tracing mean?
Skip tracing, you get a phone number for the person. So you might get one, you might get two phone numbers for them. They may be good, they may not be good.
And then you get your mojo going.
Then you get your mojo, and then you drop it into Mojo, and Mojo dials up to 300 people in an hour.
So is that why I pick up the phone, I say hello, and it just takes a second for someone to respond? Damn it. I didn't realize it's Mojo. I hate Mojo now. I'm never, ever using that word again.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the, I get to really understand and have compassion. I think we both have the theater background, so it's improv, right?
Yeah, that is very true.
Yeah, I think being non-habitual, like, hello, this is da-da, I have an offer from da-da, like if it's not that, but it's just like you're shining your smile through the phone.
I'm going to write that one down too. Man, that Fonzie did some good shit with you. All right. The last S is success. What does success mean to you?
Whew. Okay, so I'm gonna preface this by saying that I lived in Tiburon, which is like one of the most expensive zip codes in the United States for about 7 years.
What state is that in? I don't know what that is.
It's in California.
Oh, okay.
It's just kind of like right over. So if you're in San Francisco City, you go over the Golden Gate Bridge.
Okay.
And then you get into Marin, and Tiburon's like this little sort of peninsula thing. So how I'm coming at this is that I've been around a lot of people around trust funds that they're getting $250,000 a month from a trust.
Wow.
That shit doesn't make you happy.
Right.
It doesn't. It's not. There is 100%. It's an inside job success, and it's just. I feel like it's the most simple thing. Is just like there's two things: is gratitude, just feeling grateful. There's always a lot working for. So when I can drop into that place of feeling grateful for what I do have, like I'm winning. I'm successful. That doesn't mean that you just don't do anything, right? But that it just means like those. If my come from is not fear and frustration and resentment, but love and gratitude, then it's like I'm successful. Like that just lights the way to any kind of financial success, because it really doesn't matter how much you have in the bank. And it's hard to say that when you've never maybe had a lot of money in the bank or never
right.
But for people that have been on the other side of that, they know you can still be miserable.
That's very true. Well, I am grateful that you reached out to me and said, hey, let's do a podcast. I'm like, all right, Simon, let's see what Simon says. So I'm sure you've never heard that. But before we leave here, how do people find you online?
Okay, so I am just Simon Buys Houses if you want to sell me your house.
Okay.
On Facebook, it's the Authentic Messenger, or just Simon Fentress. I'm right there. I have a fan page. And if you want to email me, simon@simonbuyshouses.com.
Well, I am a fan, so thank you so much for being on the show, and looking forward to seeing the success that lies ahead for you. So thank you, Simon. And everybody else, that is all. Thank you for listening. We will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.